Welcome back, everyone. Daddy is home. Took me a little bit longer to get home from Alaska than what I initially thought it would. Actually, it was more travel intensive than what I thought it would. And just because Alaska is extremely wilderness heavy, there wasn't a whole lot of places that I had really good reception to get a video out. Plus, our flights were back to back. So being up high in the sky and that, there wasn't a whole lot that I could do, but still wanted to get a video out this week. So today we're going over the 4th Prestige Vanguard build. Now, as always, a lot of these builds I base them off what works best for my personal play style. So this may not be the best build for you specifically. However, I think for a lot of new players or people that are maybe trying out a class for the first time, it'll at least give them a solid idea of what they can expect from the class and how to best equip the perks that are available to it. So real quick, as always, the Vanguard, this class, in my opinion, it just excels at getting up close to the enemy and just unleashing hellfire. Now, the nice thing about the Vanguard is, honestly, a lot of the very early perks are rather good. So even if you are just entering prestige mode for the first time, or maybe you're just starting this class and that, a lot of perks are really good right off the bat, but there are some ones later on down the road that are better. But we're going to run through the main perks first, and then we're going to touch on the prestige perks here. So in terms of core, I start off with moving target, which essentially every melee attack that you land, you get a 2% damage reduction from ranged attacks, which is very nice because you are going to be grappling around the area and that, and a lot of times you are going to be taking some range damage, and this is just something that's going to help keep you alive. Our next perk follows the same thing, close combat focus, just an overall 20% nerf to range damage from enemies that are around the map. Again, it's nothing super special. I would say if you are someone that does struggle a little bit with the melee system in this game, Duelist isn't a bad perk because it's going to increase your perfect block and parry windows by 50%. So if you are struggling with the melee aspect of it, I would definitely recommend that. But if you're feeling good on that end, my personal favorite is close combat focus, just because, again, it's going to help keep you alive. And remember, the Vanguard does only have 2 bars of armor. Moving into the third slot here, we have consecutive execution. This was actually a perk that I never really messed around with up until I started doing the prestige mode in that. And this perk is absolutely phenomenal. For whatever reason, I must have just been absolutely stupid, or like the good idea fairy poured stupid in my cereal the first time I saw this perk, and I just did not understand it for whatever reason. But I thought that it meant that whenever you killed 7 enemies in rapid succession, it would just refill your grapple hook. That's not true. It's actually your grenades, which is pretty awesome because a lot of times you're going to be able to kill 7 enemies very, very quickly. So getting a free crack grenade, melt-a-bomb, shock grenade, whatever it is, that's really handy. Plus the cooldown is only 90 seconds. It's pretty phenomenal. I love it, especially when I'm playing on some of the higher difficulties and you're dealing with extremists. I love it for the crack grenades because you can just stick them to the Zoranthropes and that and make them a super easy kill. Just get them out of the way. Phenomenal perk. Again, though, if you are struggling with the melee combat in this game, moving down into the third row, there is honed reactions when, which will increase your perfect dodge window by 2 times as long as your health is at 50% or less. Now, moving on to the team perk, in my opinion, one of the best perks, especially at higher difficulties, Unmatched Zeal. So as long as you're doing a melee finisher on extremist or terminus level enemy, anyone who does that in the squad, not just you, anyone, is going to be able to refill their health by 30%. This is absolutely awesome because especially when you start playing on lethal or even more on absolute, where you're seeing multiple extremists at a time and you have less stims that are available, this is a nice way to keep everybody's health up and keep the squad going strong. Now, moving on into the gear, I'll be honest with you, just kind of take your pick with this. I wouldn't say any of them are absolutely phenomenal, but none of them are terrible either. I would just mess around with this whole area, figure out what works best for you. I'm just going to quickly go over what I do, and the first one is Restless Fortitude. Again, after a diving kick, take 40% less range damage, just because for this class a lot of times I do find myself playing very, very close to the enemy. Even though I do have two loadouts that have, I want to say it's the Oculus bolt rifle and the Instigator bolt rifle. A lot of times I'm just using that to soften up targets before I'm just closing right in on them. So again, taking 40% less range damage just allows me to really focus and prioritize the enemies that are immediately around me. The next perk I pick is Tip of the Spear, and that is that enemies hit by the diving kick take 15% more range damage for 10 seconds. I actually love this because it pairs really well with the Melta rifle, which is honestly the main weapon that I'm running on this class. So once you grapple onto an enemy, you go shooting forward, slap them with the Melta rifle, you're getting a 15% damage boost on top of one of our other perks here that we'll be seeing on, and it just absolutely melts, no pun intended, enemies up close. Finally, I have Thrill of the Fight, which is any time after a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, you take 20% less health damage for 5 seconds. Again, with this being a class where you are getting up close and personal a lot of the times and only having 2 bars of armor, I do like anything that's going to help keep me alive. Now, the signature perks, all of these are absolutely phenomenal. We're going to start with what I think is the worst one first here real quick, and then we'll talk about the other two. For me, the worst one is probably Emperor's Blessing, and it's actually still really, really good. It's very similar to one of the perks on the Sniper class in that, where whenever you would take damage that would be lethal, instead of going down on the Sniper, you would turn invisible. However, on the Vanguard, you get all of your armor restored right off the bat. Super good, and there have been a couple times where it's kept me in the fight instead of having me go down. Very good perk. But the other two, and these are the ones that I kind of flip-flop between the most. The first one being Tactical Prowess. So this is actually really, really cool. So what happens is whenever you grapple onto an enemy that has 33% health or less, you will immediately go into a finisher on them. It works all the way up from Minoris up to Extremist. Will not work on Terminus level enemies, so you can't do 66% damage and then just get a free mulligan off of that. It only works up to Extremist, but it is really nice because there have been a lot of times where maybe there's like a Biovore running the field or like a Scarab Terminator, and you're not sure quite how much damage it has. There have been a lot of times where it's just surprised me that, hey, we've hit that mystical 67% damage, and then all of a sudden we're going right into an execution. So very good perk. The main one, though, that I do find myself running, especially when I'm just playing with friends and helping them grind out on higher difficulties, Adrenaline Rush. Melee kills of Majoris level enemies or higher, restores your health by 5%. Vanguard is still pretty much one of the few classes that can actually self-heal. So having a perk like this, I think it's really good. But if you don't really find yourself needing to replenish your health a lot of times, for me, I just like it because I can just throw this on and I'm going to have a way to naturally heal myself, allowing my friends to grab the stim packs or just, any sort of randoms that I'm playing with online. Or if I'm just having a bad day, it's going to help keep me alive because we all have that. Now, getting into the main part here, let's talk about the prestige perks. Prestige perks on the Vanguard are extremely good. So the first perk that I ended up picking was Battlefield Awareness, which is if a target is within 8 meters of you, you deal 10% more range damage. This is actually really nice because, again, I see a lot of people using the Melta rifle on this, or even if you're not using the Melta, but you just like getting up close with the chainsword. As soon as, well, actually it won't work with the chainsword, but even if you're using like the bolt rifle or something else, once you grapple in somewhere and you do any sort of range damage, you're automatically getting that 10% buff. which is phenomenal. And then when it pairs with one of our other perks, you're actually getting 25%, again, as long as they're within that 8-meter radius, which can knock enemies a lot quicker than what you would think it could. So phenomenal perk. Moving on to the second slot, I picked Launch Restoration. Anytime you use the grapnel launcher, it restores 1 armor segment. Absolutely love this because, again, this is a class that really thrives at being up close and personal. So just getting that little bit of extra armor right before you enter the melee, absolutely huge. And honestly, it's going to be something that you're going to reap the benefits from without even realizing it most of the times, because you're just going to be grappling on a lot throughout the match. Might as well get rewarded for it. Moving into the third slot, we have Fortitude. Again, just something to help keep you alive. General health increased by 15%. And then finally, Restoration. So this is, again, something that's designed to help keep you alive. But anytime you kill 7 enemies in rapid succession, you get 1 piece of armor restored. Absolutely huge. Nice way, if you find that you're being mobbed by a whole bunch of Minoris enemies in that, even if you're not getting executions or gun strikes on them, as long as you just clear them out fast enough in that, you'll still get armor back. But very straightforward, simple setup. The way I like to play Vanguard is just immediately close the distance as fast as I can and engage in the slaughter. It's really, very straightforward in that, especially with this build. I like to try and minimize the amount of damage that I'm taking. That way I can get up into melee range as soon as possible and just start dishing out damage with either the melter rifle or the chainsword. Again, you can pretty much run any weapon on this class. The Vanguard, I think, is absolutely phenomenal, and especially with some of the buffs that we got since the Prestige Edition, it's one of my favorites. But as always, thank you all for watching. So now that I'm back home now on that, I think we're going to go back to trying to get out 2 videos every week like normal. But just wanted to thank you guys again for being patient with me, and we will catch you next time.